You may hear some fireworks in the background. This is Guy Fawkes Night in England. To international viewers, that's an important date in English history when some Catholic conspirators tried to kill the king and his parliamentarians 420 years ago tonight. Very famous, remember the 5th of November, gunpowder treason and plot. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should never be forgot. The image of Guy Fawkes has been used around the world in protests ever since, particularly from as a byproduct of the film V for Vendetta. But this isn't a history video, it's just saying that in passing, because there has been some fireworks tonight. Another story I want to cover briefly before getting into the main point with this video, which is the New York City mayoral election. Simply because I won't be making a video on its own. Dick Cheney died yesterday, former vice president under George W. Bush, and it's fair to say one of the most influential vice presidents in American history, certainly one of the most controversial. He was a major figure behind the war on terror. He was an advocate of enhanced interrogation, which many would term to be torture. Highly controversial figure, certainly well on the hawkish right. But he served various Republican administrations from Gerald Ford up to George W. Bush. And I'm no fan of Trump, though, so that's notable. This was the obituary in today's Times. I don't really have a lot more to add. It is what it is. Dick Cheney was a controversial figure. I watched the film Vice by Adam McKay, in which he was portrayed by Christian Bale. Christian Bale's a great actor, but my critique of that film was it was kind of one-dimensional, and I'm not criticising Bale's performance, but the way it was written, you almost expect Darth Vader music to play every time Cheney entered the room. There was also this bizarre fixation on his heart operations. He had 4 heart attacks. That just seemed a strange direction with the movie. And, Adam McKay is well known to be well on the left, so the film clearly had a political agenda, which is fine, but that's, it was obvious. So, yeah, I won't add too much except to state the obvious. Dick Cheney was a controversial figure. I will say this, September 11th was a profound event in the United States, and I think sometimes it's easy to look and say, they're just terrible and it was all awful in terms of what the Bush administration done, but no administration in American history had to deal with that. I mean, this is not a justification of Cheney. I actively protested against the Iraq War, and I think there were things that went on in the Bush administration that are very hard to condone. But when assessing any leadership, you need to look at the overall context. I think that is an objective thing to do. And I don't quite go along with this narrative that Cheney is just the devil. Very few human beings are black and white, and certainly he deserves a lot of criticism, and he was a highly controversial figure, and with good reason, but I don't quite go along with the view that it's just black and white, and absolutely everything that was done was unjustified. You needed tough minds in that context. But there's a picture of Bush's cabinet, General Colin Powell, Dick Cheney. But certainly he was one of the most significant figures in that administration. Anyway, New York City election, it's probably not totally unrelated because 24 years after September 11th, New York City has elected its first Muslim mayor. There's a few records actually. He is the youngest mayor in over a century. First Muslim mayor, I believe the first mayor to be born on the African continent. There's some other things that stand out. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't followed it very closely, and what I'm going to read out actually is from a slightly different source, because I could read out any number of reports just about his win, but I'm going to read out this from the British perspective of the British left, that is, because certainly there's going to be a lot of optimism on the British left with this result. There is inevitably comparisons to Sadiq Khan. You have 2 major western cities, London and New York City, run by Muslim mayors, and so it's a point of commentary. I'm not making a political statement on that, I'm just saying it's a fact. Both mayors are going to be heavily criticised. Well, Khan has been heavily criticised, by the right. I'm not a New Yorker, and as I always say with these sort of videos, I will leave it to New Yorkers to leave comments. So I'm not going to comment too much about my thoughts on this result, but these are the results actually. Another thing is he's the first mayoral candidate to get over 1 million votes in modern times since 1969. So the results are Zohran Mamdani, the Democrat Party allied with working families, 1,036,051 votes, which is just over half. Andrew Cuomo, the former disgraced governor of New York, ran as an independent, 854,995 votes. Curtis Sliwa, Republican, 146,137. I'm interested in Sliwa. I'm interested why he done so poorly. The reason I say that is because I'm familiar with him. In New York City, he's very famous as one of the founders of the Guardian Angels, which formed, I believe, in the late 70s, early 80s, as a sort of public vigilante group against the rampant crime in New York City at that time. Distinctive for the Red Berets, and they had some tensions with the NYPD. But I'm curious, why did Sliwa perform so poorly? Was it the fact he's simply a Republican in a traditionally Democrat state? What is it? So New Yorkers, why is Sliwa apparently unpopular? I mean, surely the Guardian Angels were a popular movement. I don't understand that. Another thing is that Trump's narrative about crime in Democrat-run cities obviously hasn't resonated with actual voters, because New York City has had crime problems. There was a while back where a lot of young women were being violently assaulted on the streets, just punched for no reason. I remember seeing videos of that. Having said that, big American cities do not have the sort of crime levels that they had in the 1970s, or in the case of New York City, its peak in 1990. In fact, there's a movie called A Most Violent Year with Jessica Chastain and Oscar Isaac. It speaks about 1981 as being the crime peak, but it depends on how you look at it. 1990 was the murder peak in New York City. Over 2,000 homicides, a staggering figure. 1981, I think, was overall crime. But clearly, New York City is not those sort of levels. Some of this comes down to the broken window policy. But again, I'm not going to be too political here because I am an outsider. But I'd like to know from New Yorkers, what is it? What helped this man get elected? I mean, what was the pitch that he put out that really resonated with you? I'm not criticizing. I'm not questioning. I'm just curious. Because that's what's happened. Clearly, he's had a decisive win. So this is from a report from the BBC regarding the British left's reaction to this, because they're obviously very positive about it. British left wingers overjoyed by Mamdani's victory in New York. This is by Henry Zeffman and Brian Wheeler. The election of a new mayor in New York City is rarely big news in the UK, but Zohran Mamdani's victory is generating a lot of attention, particularly on the left of British politics. This is what socialist representation looks like, posted a jubilant Sarah Sultana alongside a picture of her with Mamdani. She, for American viewers, she's an independent MP who's associated with the hard left. She was formerly in the Labour Party. The former Labour MP is in the process of forming a new left-wing party with Jeremy Corbyn, who will also be celebrating the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist victory. Corbyn, a former Labour leader, I think this was probably written for an international audience because everyone in Britain knows who Corbyn is, hosted a phone bank on Sunday evening to get the vote out for Mamdani, posing with a North London for Zohran Arsenal football shirt. The two are both fans of the club. Mamdani's policies such as taxing the rich, universal free childcare and freezing rents are in tune with Corbyn and Sultana's brand of socialism, and he shares a record of pro-Palestinian activism with his British allies. But the fact that Mamdani took on and beat the centrist old guard in his old party, defeating Andrew Cuomo, a former Democratic New York governor who was forced to run as an independent, will also be a morale boost for left-wingers no longer welcoming their fall. I should say the context of this election was from the scandal following Mayor Eric Adams. So, there's been a few scandals in New York politics in recent years. In a statement, your party, the holding name for the new Corbyn and Sultana party, said Zohran's historic victory demonstrates that the old politics of the centre is bankrupt and a new socialist politics can take its place. They added, we will build that politics and that alternative here in Britain too. Yet they're forgetting the fact that Corbyn had 2 runs in a general election and was rejected twice, so let's just disregard that point. Green Party leader Zach Polanski, he's another politician who's getting increasing focus these days, was also quick to celebrate Mamdani's victory and did not hesitate to encourage comparisons with himself, saying he would adopt the same relentless focus on inequality. Polanski's attention-grabbing brand of eco-populism has boosted his party to record membership levels, and he has signalled his willingness to work with Corbyn and Sultana when the new party gets off the ground. Senior Labour Party figures have been more muted in the reaction. Labour's 3-time London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who is still in the Labour Party, who shares Mamdani's Muslim faith and, like him, has been on the receiving end of attacks from Donald Trump, was clearly delighted. New Yorkers face a clear choice between hope and fear, and just like we've seen in London, hope won, he said on social media. But Labour cabinet ministers, with the exception of Health Secretary Wes Streeting, have not been clamouring to congratulate the newly elected New York mayor. Writing on X, Streeting, who is said to harbour leadership ambitions, wrote that Mamdani's campaign had been inspirational and that there were lessons for progressives the world over. Bridget Phillipson, she's one of the MPs in my city, I should say, the Education Secretary, adopted a different tone. Asked by Sky News whether she liked Mamdani, she replied, I'll be honest, I don't follow American politics especially closely. I actually met Phillipson earlier this year. She visited the local Ukrainian group I go to. Sarah Smith, a backbench Labour MP who was elected in 2024, told the BBC's Politics Live Mamdani's victory brings real hope to progressive politicians like myself, but she said it was also a sign of just how volatile the politics of today are, and that he now faces some real challenges to deliver on what he said he will do and keep business on side. Reaction on the right of British politics has been even more muted. Conservative peer Baroness Farsi, the first Muslim woman to sit in the British cabinet, posted that was a fantastic moment. We can all celebrate whatever our politics, left or right. Although I think it's fair to say Baroness Farsi would be more on the left of the Conservative Party. Hope won there and it can win here. Many, many congratulations to a young man who, despite all the attacks, remained unapologetically himself. I should add he's only 34 years old. But Farsi has become increasingly detached from the Conservative Party since leaving frontline politics. A scathing takedown of Mamdani's politics and background in the Spectator magazine, it's a Conservative publication, may be closer to the views of the average Tory MP, who have a tribal aversion to socialism in all its forms. The piece by Conservative commentator Herda MacDonald denounces Mamdani as an overgrown college student whose policies will destroy New York. It's always dangerous to read too much from across US politics to UK politics. They have very different electoral systems and traditions, and some have clearly already said had their fill of Mamdani fever. One influential Labour figure said, I'll tell you what, I cannot be doing with all the takes we've had on this New York mayor and what it means for the Labour Party. Some will also see the election of a more traditional Democrats as governors in New Jersey and Virginia, they were more centrist figures by comfortable margins, as a more significant sign of where US politics is heading as midterm elections approach. But for British left-wingers seeking a source of inspiration, a sign that it's possible to win with an explicitly socialist platform allied to a slick social media savvy campaign, right now Mamdani is hard to beat. That campaign in Virginia, the gubernatorial campaign, the Democrat candidate had apparently, there'd been some culture war issues going on there. Like I said, I haven't followed this stuff very closely. One thing I am curious about, and I want to know this from New Yorkers, what was the issue with Curtis Lewa? Is it simply because he's a Republican? Is he pro-Trump? I mean, what that would suggest to me is that at least in New York City itself, concern about crime is not top of the agenda, because clearly Mamdani hasn't campaigned on that. Yet he has won this election comfortably. So are New Yorkers complacent about crime? Is it not as big an issue as some outsiders perceive it to be? There is some that say Trump will actually welcome this, because having someone on the populist left or hard left, whatever way you want to look at it, will actually enable Trump to say, oh look, the Democrats are electing the radical left rather than being mainstream. So it may actually play into Trump's hands. We'll see how this plays out. It may well be that in office, Mamdani can't promise everything that he's claiming. I don't I mean, as an outsider, I think issues around inequality, there's definitely merit to that. Especially with the rising living costs, there is definitely, I can definitely understand why people will gravitate to that. But some of his positions, apparently, for example, he wanted to just close down New York's prisons. I would certainly be skeptical of that. I mean, my own politics, I'm conservative on crime. I would certainly be wary of any candidate that would be take an anti punishment stance on crime. But I'm an outsider, so New Yorkers, tell me what do you feel about this? Did you vote for him? Did you not vote for him? How do you feel about it? Um, he's the youngest mayor in over a century, the first Muslim mayor. There's other firsts. I believe he is the first. Let me just get this right. He was born in Kampala, Uganda. Um, the only child of post-colonialism academic Mahmoud Mamdani and filmmaker Mira Nair. Um, but I think in the case of New York City, it's an international, global alpha city. It's one of the world's most important cities. So having a mayor from a diverse background is not really unusual. It would be unusual if it was a small town somewhere, but New York City, not really. Um, I know some are saying like the right's reaction is predictable. Two major Western cities are now run by Islamists. There's no evidence that Sadiq Khan or Mamdani are actually have political Islamism as their agenda. They are Muslims, but that's not the same thing as being Islamists. And I think that has to be clarified. But I want to hear it from New Yorkers. What do you think of your new mayor? If you're a supporter, do you think he could deliver all that he says? Um, I think there's certainly some noble things there. I mean, I think issues to do with inequality are very valid, but I would personally be concerned about, well, what's the stance on crime? I mean, from what I heard, and again, people can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but a lot of the street muggings that were taking place recently, these violent assaults, the perpetrators just got out on bail. Now, surely New Yorkers have some concerns or frustration about that, I would have thought. And again, I don't know why Curtis Lewa didn't do so well at all. I mean, he's well known in New York. He has a track record of standing up for New Yorkers against crime. So what is the issue there? Maybe there's some association with Trump. Maybe there's some scandal I don't know about. I'm just curious. Why did Curtis Lewa not do better? So is it purely a political thing because he stood as a Republican? What is it? I would like to hear from New Yorkers. What are your thoughts on this election result? How do you think Mamdani will be as a mayor? Thanks for watching.